This is Game On, discussing the biggest games and all the latest sports news with Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Welcome to episode 39 of Game On the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. I feel awkward doing this. Oops, as I do it again. Let's see. If I can make it to this awkward intro, I will. Welcome to episode 39. Hank Indictor, Nick Morgasen. See, when Johnny's not here, things get messed up. But
yeah, no, I'm waiting for that Showtime phrase, but it's like Mike and the Mad Dog without Mad Dog screaming his classic and iconic line.
That's true. And by the way, I did intern for his channel. It's serious.
Yes, I remember that story.
I mean, I used to intern for the show right before him, so I used to see him come in. And the fun part about that was I used to get to see him do the iconic I used to see it every time before I leave. So that was kind of fun. But make sure you follow the show on social media at GameOnETB, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And make sure you follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Hank, we got a lot to get into. Also, don't forget our new website, etbpodcast.com. Make sure you check out some blogs by Hank Indictor here, who did some Giants blogs to start off. By the way, tell everybody your most recent article.
So my most recent article, I essentially broke down, I wouldn't say all of them, but maybe 85, 90% of the Dave Gettleman acquisitions. And basically it was a few long paragraphs explaining why you really cannot credit him for the success of the current team just because you have guys such as Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, or I'll throw in Dexter Lawrence, because remember he was landed in the Odell Beckham trade. And even the Odell Beckham trade, as much as you can say the Giants win, how it was handled I would say was another matter entirely, I think. But, if you want to see more about that, I would recommend reading my blog. And
it's a good read. I read it beforehand. No bias here. It actually was a really good read. So etbpodcast.com. Go click on the blog section. His article is there along with some others as well. Sports and entertainment stuff. A lot of sports to begin. But
also, fair warning, if you already thought that the Dave Gettleman tenure was bad, I promise you'll see how much worse it is once you read it.
It's a good point. But all right, so we'll get into the show. A lot of NFL. Now, for this time of the year, most shows are very NFL heavy. That's normal. We'll get into the Super Wildcard Weekend, even though I think Super is a little bit of a stretch when it comes to Wildcard Weekend, the way some of the scores were, including an upset from your favorite football team making it to the next round. We'll get to that and break all that down. Then we'll jump into some NFL buzz, including our favorite person is going to ruin our off-season all over again.
RELAX.
So, yes, he's going to ruin our off-season all over again. You ready for that?
Not really, but I'm willing to let it all out on him.
And then we'll get into the divisional round. We're really getting into the NFL playoffs now. And then, guess what, Hank? There's baseball news.
I have a feeling that we're going to rip a certain commissioner a new one. Not the first time, and sure as hell not the last time.
It's the first time. It's the first ripping for Rob Manfred of the year. I didn't think it would come this early in the year, but it's about to come.
It was inevitable. We knew that.
Yeah, we knew that. All right. So let's get into the thick of things. I think where we got to start is the Chargers and the Jaguars. Now, 27-0 in the first half. They end up losing 31-30. The Jaguars somehow pull this out. Brandon Staley somehow still has a job.
Well, if it's any consolation, I think they did the right thing by letting Joe Lombardi go, but is that really enough? I would say no. I mean, at the end of the day, I was talking to Garth about this not long after the game ended, and keep in mind, Garth's like probably the only Chargers fan no, I think I might know another one, but he's the biggest Chargers fan I know by far, and that's only really because there aren't too many. And he said that Joe Lombardi was the one that called a lot of the plays, so it really made sense as to why, like, he was the one that got the big shaft. However, it does beg a question. Was Brandon Staley essentially throwing him under the bus? And there's a big part of me that thinks he is. And I don't think he was the only member of that coaching staff that got canned after the loss. Now,
There was also Shane Day, the quarterback's coach. I think who
I
also
mean,
got canned.
even if I'm to believe Garth, and I will, because Garth like seems to know more about the Chargers than like anybody I know, because I mean, obviously he's a fan of the team. Let's not forget, this is the same coach that let Justin Herbert keep playing while he was still injured, and also played Mike Williams when the game meant nothing. Granted, if you wanted to give them a little bit of reps week 18, like, don't get me wrong, I'm for that, but to let your starters play almost all the game when it means nothing, that's kind of irresponsible. And that's why, even though I initially wanted Dable to let Jones play against the Philadelphia Eagles, and even though I'm typically one of those you play to win the game guys, like, you also have to look at players' health, and that's essential. And Dable knew this, and I'm sorry if I'm going on doing a little thing for comparison's sake, but that's why he didn't really let too many guys play against the Eagles, because it was essentially a bye week.
It was well, they weren't going higher or lower. They were locked into the spot where they were.
Exactly.
Now, what makes no sense, and I discussed this with Tom on ETB as well, why are you playing Mike Williams and Keenan Allen in week 18? And Mike Williams got hurt. It cost them the game.
Oh, you don't think that they could have used him in that game?
They cost themselves the playoffs.
I mean, we've seen the Chargers have many bad losses. I still would have to put the 2006 divisional round of the Patriots up there, because that was a historically good team, and I would say that might be the best team of my lifetime to never win a playoff game, either them or the 2011 Packers.
Well, you're also forgetting that the Chargers also had a really bad loss this year in the regular season, which I think I hear it in the distance.
I'm talking about playoff chokes.
No, but I'm talking about it.
Oh, the
I mean, that was probably one of the worst losses of the year. That was after Staley came out and said, we were prepared, we were rested, we were ready to go, and then you laid an egg against the Broncos in Denver.
Prepared my you-know-what. I mean, not to mention, if we're going to go back 1 year earlier, do you remember the Raiders game where all they had to do was, like, spike, to quote Jaguar Gator 9, spike the ball into the ground and do nothing in overtime for, like, 10 minutes, and they could have just ran the clock out and it would have been a tie, but then he called like a dangerous play. Raiders get the ball. It was it an interception?
Yeah.
And then they kick the field goal. Raiders are in the playoffs. I know Steeler fans were enjoying it because it got them into the playoffs, but still.
That was the whole thing where they just said, hey, why don't we just tie so we both get into the playoffs? But that
could have gotten in by Spike doing nothing but spike the ball into the ground.
Right. And both teams would have gotten in, and then Pittsburgh would have gone home. But I don't know. I look at this box score, and I look at, there was an interesting statistic, and I did it in ETB Minute after this game. Trevor Lawrence had 4 picks in the first half, 4 interceptions in the first half, came back in the last 31 minutes and threw 4 touchdowns. I mean, go ahead and say it, Hank, because now you should say it.
I'm sorry, say it again. Trevor Lawrence is him.
Exactly. He went from 4 picks to 4 touchdowns.
I mean, again, good quarterbacks. Good quarterbacks show you that you're never out of the game. And
true.
Doug Peterson, give him all the credit where credit is due. He made some ballsy play calls that really kept the Jaguars in this game. I thought going for 2 was definitely an interesting decision because at that point, if you kick an extra point, then no big deal because the worst case scenario, you'd be driving down to try to tie the game with a normal field goal. But then he got 2. Now he put them in a position to win, which if it had failed, you'd be hearing a lot of criticisms for him because let's say they don't make it, then they'd be down by 4 and they'd be needing a touchdown. But nope, it worked for them. They're on to the next round. And Nick, this game, depending on like what happens within the future for the Jaguars, could be right up there with the upset over the Broncos in 96 for if we're talking about greatest wins in Jaguars history. And if they can beat the Chiefs, that might top that.
I agree with you. But I just don't get it. How do you go up 27-0 and lose 31-30? How?
Weren't there like only 7 run calls?
Yeah.
7.
You can't make this up. Like it's just
that takes a special kind of bad coaching. I mean, I thought the Falcons like made some conservative calls in Super Bowl, like in what was it, Super Bowl 51?
Yeah,
No,
I think so.
The Chargers were worse.
Right. I mean, and I don't know if you saw it on Twitter. Did you see what people did with the Chargers and the Falcons logo combining it together?
Yeah, they combined the logo. I mean, it was pretty. Was it silly? Yeah, but undeserved.
No, it was definitely deserved. They played awful in the second half. I mean, and Spanos, and I said this also on ETV, Spanos is probably one of the worst owners in the NFL. He's one of the richest owners in the NFL and doesn't spend money. That's what's insane here. So the reason they're going to keep Staley is, you want to know how much Staley makes per year in his contract? $4 million.
Oh, you know what that sounds like?
What?
Severance.
Well, he's not going anywhere.
That would be a lot of severance.
I mean, the thing is,
one of my favorite phrases.
Yeah, obviously. But I was going to say, like, the rumors were that like Sean Payton would be a great fit with the Chargers in Los Angeles to turn that whole situation around with Justin Herbert. But the rumors for Payton are 4 or 5 years at $20 million a year, but Spanos is not going to pay.
Right.
I mean, Herbert's a great quarterback. He's going to get paid. But I'll tell you a take I made on ETB, which was, I think what Herbert needs to do is pay extra attention next year to however the year goes. And if it does not go well, say they bring Staley back, Herbert needs to request a trade and get out of there.
Yeah, I would not blame him.
Because there's no way, if the Chargers situation was not well when Staley is still coaching and then they brought him back, there's no way it's going to get better. Staley's all of a sudden brain is not going to make smarter plays.
Mm-hmm.
But bad game for the Chargers. They need to retool. And we'll see what happens with them next year. The Jaguars move on to take on the Chiefs. Next game in that weekend, this was probably the one. I think it was one of 2 that covered all weekend spread wise, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it definitely did because I know that it was like 14.
So it was 41-13. So what is that? That's
no, I mean the spread wasn't it like 14.
It was. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look back, but I know
big.
It was big, and somehow they covered. And the first half was close in this game, a little too close for San Francisco's liking, to be honest. And then they came out in the second half and said, "You know what? We're playing Seattle. We're supposed to beat the crap out of Seattle."
And they did.
Now, give credit where credit is due. Geno Smith came back and proved he could be a starting quarterback. Will he? I think he has a home now in Seattle. Would you agree?
Did that make you retch on the inside a bit?
A little bit.
I would say he is, but as far as long-term quarterback, I don't know if I would go there. But you know what? At least they have a top 5 pick in the draft.
Well, because of that trade with Denver.
Because the Broncos did the tanking for him.
That's so bad. That's so bad on Denver's part. That shows you how much the circus is in town for Denver.
Dun,
But
dun, 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 dun.
but just looking at this game, Brock Purdy does it again. 18 for 30, 332 yards. McCaffrey has another great game. Uh, their offensive weapons are crazy. You've been on San Francisco the whole way.
Yes.
And I'm a fan of San Francisco. I think they're going to represent. I still think it's going to be Buffalo, San Francisco in the Super Bowl. I think that's where we're heading. Um, McCaffrey has totally turned this team around from a run standpoint, and then just adding all the wide receiver depth. How do you beat this team? How? Explain to me how you beat this team.
The only team that might even have a prayer at beating them would be a certain one that I'm not going to say this term because I don't want us to get like demonetized or anything, but a certain team could get blocked from even being a champion. That would be the Philadelphia Eagles.
I know what you were going to say.
You knew what I was thinking.
Yes. I mean, the Niners are a strong team. Seattle, I said this for the last 5-6 weeks. Seattle ran out of gas. They just did not. The momentum was there the first half of the year. And then by the time they got to the last 5 or 6 weeks, like Gino is okay. He's a quality quarterback at best, but it's hard to trust him with a team all year. I mean, do you remember at the beginning of the season that it was Drew Lock? He beat out Drew Lock for the starting quarterback in Seattle.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
That's crazy, right? That he beat out Drew Lock, and now everyone's saying, "Oh my God, Geno Smith, comeback player of the year." Which actually, he probably will win comeback player of the year the way he's played this year.
No, I know another player who's more deserving of that.
Why are you going to say Saquon Barkley?
You're damn right. I'm going to say Saquon Barkley.
I mean, the two of them had good years, though.
I mean, look, let me put it this way. 2 years ago, Saquon Barkley tore his ACL. A year later, he tied with Devontae Booker for the leading rusher for the Giants. This year, he was in the top 5 in terms of rushing yards.
Oh no, I'm not debating that. Like Saquon had a good year, not just a good year, a great year.
Though, as I said in my recent piece, you can't necessarily, if you're gonna give Daniel Jones and or Saquon Barkley consideration for the Giants offensive MVP, you also have to consider Andrew Thomas. That's the story for another day.
Well, all right, let's go there now. So the Giants upset the Vikings. Everyone, I was shocked. I'm sure a bunch of Giants fans were shocked at the score in the first half. It was 24-21 in the first half.
24-14.
No, but I've just...
Actually, no, it didn't get that way until the beginning of the third quarter. Because the Giants were up 17. They were up 17-7. And then the Vikings drove. They scored a touchdown at the very end of the half. But the Giants on the opening drive, they scored that touchdown.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, okay.
Don't go debating with the Giants fan here on this.
But I'm just saying, like, the score was much higher than I expected early on. Like,
I was also going to say, don't even try to debate a Big Blue Avenue host.
Right. But I'm just saying the amount of scoring that happened early on in this game shocked me. That they both went touchdown for touchdown in their first possession, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't expect. I didn't expect guns a-blazing and right out of the box. I was expecting some struggles out of the box with the offense. Now, Minnesota proved that their defense is Swiss cheese. Like the holes, the amount of holes that Saquon ran through in this game was insane. Like they weren't even trying to block Saquon. Right?
Oh, yeah, no. The Vikings have had probably as much trouble stopping the run as we did, and probably even more so. Like, their defense was definitely a big reason that the Giants were able to score 30 for only the second time, not just this season, but since, I want to say, that Dallas game in 2020.
I mean,
But,
yeah.
with that being said, you also have to give credit to Daniel Jones where credit is due.
Oh no, he played very
If
well.
you look at the game film, he had a perfect passer rating. I believe the last Giant to do that would have been Kerry Collins in a playoff game. Oddly enough, against the Vikings, except
Wow.
this time around, the Giants weren't blowing them out 41-0. But he only took 3 sacks, but other than those 3 sacks, every single time he had the ball, you could see him staring down the field, wondering what to do. But credit to the offensive line, he got enough time and he knew when to run if he was sensing danger. He played absolutely phenomenally. And Nick, I'm going to be honest, this very well might have been his signature Giants performance.
No, he was great. He was, and referring to something you said about looking at his options down the, it looked like the computer was going a lot more functionally in his head. Like he was always looking for the next option if something fell down or something didn't work. In the past, he would have just either taken the sack or thrown the ball away. Like he just looked way more focused in this game.
He absolutely did. I mean, look, if there's one little bit of a nitpick I could maybe give, I would say they didn't really run the ball enough because Saquon only really got 9 carries, but even then, he still got 53 yards.
That's what's kind of strange about that.
Touchdown in the first quarter, that really set the tone because the Vikings pretty much were driving. They got that touchdown with ease. It looked like Justin Jefferson was in there, but upon replays, he was short his knee was down just short, and Kirk Cousins snuck it in. And Kirk Cousins, by the way, before I really get back into my Giants tangent, I do want to say, despite his reputation as someone who doesn't do well in primetime games, he wasn't really the reason the Vikings lost this game, unless you want to talk about that play that happened at the end of the game. But take that away. He was keeping them in the game.
Wait, what about that that sweep, that 3rd and 1
sweep?
I'm
glad you brought that up. Tom and I were talking about that. Albano, that is. Funny, you were assuming I would say Scabetta.
Yeah, I did.
We were talking about that, I would say in the group chat or during our meeting. That was a game changer. And let me tell you why. Because this was the Vikings' second possession in the game. Remember, it was 3rd down. When the Giants stopped Jefferson on that sweep and got the ball back, that was huge because looking at the way the game was going offensively for both teams, if the Vikings get that first down, chances are they probably either get a field goal or a touchdown. Either way, they have the ball for a lot longer. Defense is going to get worn down. And, we're talking about a whole different goal game. And who knows how the Giants would have reacted when down 14-7. I mean, granted, Daniel Jones probably still would have had as good of a game, but it was a really big game changer.
I mean, yeah, right.
There were 2 other things that I'd say were game changers. I would say that 11-minute drive where they kicked the field goal. Now, even though they didn't reach the end zone, I think that was still big because, you kept the Vikings on the field for an extended amount of time.
Well, their defense just looked tired by the end of the game. I mean, and it was just weird because they were falling asleep on plays where Daniel Jones was going deep downfield.
We also have to talk about the stop the defense made that limited the Vikings to a field goal. I mean, even though that tied the game, you still, with the way Daniel Jones was moving the ball, and given that it was the 4th quarter, you had to feel slightly confident that the Giants were going to find a way to take the lead if you were a Giants fan.
Oh, no, it definitely looked that way. They looked more confident. They looked like they were playing confident.
And they were. And one other big takeaway I have was, even on the last drive the Giants had, and even despite the fact that Darius Slayton dropped the wide open pass when he was in that crossing route, that drive, the Giants ran the ball down the Vikings' throats enough times to where they had to burn out all their timeouts just to ensure that they might even have a chance.
Right. And like I said, that touchdown...
By the way, Jim Harbaugh probably could take notes on that a bit.
John
Harbaugh, rather.
I'm surprised you brought him up.
We're going to get to him later. But
We'll get to him later. But what I was going to say is when Saquon had that touchdown, when he went through that open hole at the beginning of the game, I just said this is going to be a long game for Minnesota. That's what I said, because if they're not going to stop him at the beginning of the game, what makes you think that Minnesota is going to stop him all game? Like, that's momentum. Running backs need momentum. When they have momentum and they're playing off well, they're going to keep getting the ball. Now, when you look at the Vikings, you can't blame this on Kirk Cousins. 31 for 39, 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, no sacks. No sacks. You can't blame this on Kirk Cousins.
no.
You. By the way, do you know who the leading receiver was for this game?
Yeah, I believe it was Isaiah Hodgins.
No. Well, I meant for for the Giants. But do you know who the leading receiver was for Minnesota?
I think that would have been that would have been Hawkinson.
It was Hawkinson. Yes,
10 catches, 120 yards. Now, granted, he didn't score a touchdown, but the one issue was the Giants had trouble covering him, and that's been a thing with the Giants for as long as I can remember, them trying to cover tight ends.
But I think that was a recipe for disaster that Hawkinson was the leading receiver. Think about that.
Justin Jefferson didn't really have one of his better games.
He had 7 receptions for 47 yards. That's a no bueno for the Vikings.
And you know what? You also have to give credit to Adoree Jackson for that.
No, the Giants defense was great, but I'm saying that Jefferson being, let's see, third on the receiver amount, that's no good. If he's not your leading guy, you're not winning, because that means he's not your direct threat offensively. Adam Thielen beat him out on 3 receptions for 50. I mean, you can't win. And Dalvin Cook, 15 carries for 60 yards. You're not winning unless he's triple billing. You're not going to win. Like, the Vikings offense has to be on all cylinders for them to win. Wasn't it true that they had the most 1 possession wins this year? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was true for a lot of their wins, but since their losses were so bad, that's why they were, as Johnny would say, in the red.
Which game was that? Was that the Cowboys or the Eagles that they got blown out? It was the Cowboys, right? That blew them out?
The Cowboys, and well, they also got blown out by the Packers.
No, but the Cowboys scored like 40 plus.
Yes.
And they got blown out big time. But the Giants played good defense. If you look at this game, you could tick all the boxes for the Giants. Did Daniel Jones play well? Yes, he played better than well. He played great. He threw for 300 yards. Did Saquon Barkley play well? Yes. He had 50 yards plus rushing, 50 yards plus receiving, and he had 2 touchdowns. Box checked. Did the defense play well? Yes. They stepped up when necessary to get the necessary stops. Now, I don't know what Kirk Cousins was doing at the end of the game there on 4th and 8, throwing essentially a screen pass when you know you needed 8 yards. I don't know. Do you have any idea what was going on that play? Because I certainly didn't.
No, that was all a shot, like, surprising to me. I'm like, what the heck was that?
A screenplay on 4th and 8 when you need yards.
By the way, can I talk a little bit about the Darius Slayton drop for a bit?
Yeah, well, it's funny you brought that up because Tom and I talked about it. You probably saw it in the group chat that we were having. That Tom almost lost his mind. He said he was going to blame Slayton if they had lost the game. There, would you have done the same thing?
Maybe, but at the same time, the Giants' defense was having trouble for certain amounts of time, so you would have to go beyond that. But even so, Slayton made plays that really kept the Giants in the game. But what I really liked was how Dable didn't berate him. None of the players threw him under the bus. They all were consoling him on the sidelines. And I really think that, that helped them win the game, because usually a team follows the leads of guys such as Daniel Jones and Brian Dable. And that just goes to show you how great of a coach he is by staying calm and not panicking in the moment.
Right. And you know what
shows a good amount of maturity on Daniel Jones' part.
Agreed. And you know what's interesting? Dable takes it out on the refs more than he takes it out on the players, which I find hilarious, by the way, because you'll just see him go with the headset, and that just makes me laugh because at least it shows that he cares. At least that he's got. If you look at some of the past coaches, who are we talking about here? So, who were the last couple coaches before Dable?
Joe Judge and Pat Shermer, and then the guy who benched Eli Manning. We're not even going to mention his name.
You didn't see the fire in those guys. You see fire in Dable.
Judge, you'd see some fire in. Like, you kind of know where I stand on Joe Judge. I think that he was a great coach? No, but I also think he was kind of sabotaged, and I may or may not have mentioned that at the end of my article. Jeez, what is
I did read that, by the way. Yes. But you know what? Good win for the Giants. It's going to be a tough road the rest of the way to win. Now, I said this to Tom. I'll say it to you. I actually think the matchup is a little bit closer than people are going to give the Giants credit for up against the Eagles, because I don't think Jalen Hurts is 100% healthy. We'll get to the divisional games in a few minutes, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to a game that people didn't expect to be as close as it was. The Bills edge out the Dolphins. Did you expect them to edge out the Dolphins?
Not quite. I thought this would be a blowout. I mean, you and I were texting back and forth during that game. You were like, "What is going on?"
I was, because I'm like, Skylar Thompson is out throwing the Bills defense.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I think the Bills, you knew they were ultimately going to win the game, but I think the reason it was close was because there were times where they, correct me if I'm wrong, they looked over anxious.
They did. And on top of that, Josh Allen threw some pretty bad interceptions. So I don't know.
Again, I think he really was like getting over anxious, and I've seen him do that during the season. That's the one thing that could lead to their downfall.
He did that against Kansas City last year.
Yes.
But you know what? Josh Allen, 23 for 39, 352 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did get sacked 7 times, which is a lot against Miami.
In that sense, he reminds me a bit of Eli. He's a gunslinger.
Yes, absolutely. That's gung-ho. I agree with that.
You know what? I'm going to take it a step further and say Brett Favre.
That's interesting.
Brett Favre, but without the dick pics.
Wow, I didn't think you were going to go there.
Or the stealing money for gymnasiums.
Well, or being in a Jet uniform.
Well, if anything, Josh Allen's actually more charitable than Brett Favre. But
I agree with you on that one.
The Brett Favre shitting hour.
I would shit on Brett Favre all day and night.
As you should. And probably the last 2 Packers quarterbacks.
That's a whole nother story for another day. But you know what? No one by the way, Vegas probably made a lot of money off this game because of everyone probably hit. I guarantee you almost 100% of the money was on the Bills. And the spread was huge. It was like 13.5.
No, I mean, no one thought this was going to be close, and for good reason.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Skylar Thompson? Who's this man you're talking about?
I'm sorry, what?
Exactly. You realize I was saying that to myself every time like Skylar Thompson was like making a play. I was like, well then, I guess we're going to make this a game. I don't remember the last time we had like a 34-31 shootout in the playoffs. Do you?
34-31. I'm sure. Well, I would say probably last year, but the last year's Bills-Chiefs games was even bigger than that.
But I'm just saying, like, this was like a real gunsling shootout. Like, no one expected this to be shootout. Like,
it's more common than you think, Nick.
That's true. You're right. But by the way, did you see the video that was going viral with Mike McDaniel on the sideline?
Oh, with the vape?
I made a TikTok out of it because it was such a funny clip. Because it looks like I think it's him like blowing into his air into his glove or just like his hand, but it looks like he has like a vape in his hand and he's like smoking on the sideline. It was a very funny moment, but like the people in the comments on TikTok were really funny. Like, he probably needs to take the edge off considering the amount of stuff that's gone on with Tua this year. I was like, all right, can we slow it down a notch, please? Like, well, I'll ask you the one question because Tom said it to me. Do you think they win down the stretch if Tua is the quarterback there?
I'm going to say that's a maybe.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that the maybe is because, I think ultimately, like, you probably would have gone into the fourth quarter thinking the Dolphins had a chance, and you probably would have been panicking more if you're a Bills fan. But do I think they would have won? I'm still not 100% sure because I think the Bills were the better team regardless.
Again, I'll use the phrase that I use a lot in this situation: fallacy of a predetermined outcome.
Predetermined outcome. I love that.
Because you don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, but Tua, do I like their chances better with Tua? Yes. But you don't know what happens there. You're right. The Bills are the better team. Just they look nervous and scared when they were out there. It was a little bizarre, but
in fact, I'm gonna give you a hot take.
Okay.
Maybe they aren't as scared if say, Tua is out there because, they know that he's a real quarterback and they know like, oh, it probably wouldn't be as bad of a loss. No?
Oh, you're talking about like from the pressure standpoint if you lost to someone who's never been in the playoffs before.
Correct.
Now, It was weird listening to the broadcast because they're like, oh my God, maybe the Bills are thinking they're going to lose and then blah, blah. I hate when people do that, by the way. Just like, let the game play out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But way closer than we thought. Bills won. They move on to take on the Bengals. But speaking of said Bengals and Ravens, this was an odd game in every way, shape, or form. I don't know. Where do we start?
I'm going to be honest. I think the Ravens losing this game was almost entirely Jim Harbaugh's fault.
John.
Why am I getting those two brothers confused?
I used to do it in the past.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I do kind of casually support Michigan, so you can see why I was thinking of.
No, I get you.
I usually have Jim registered in my mind before John, so
he did almost leave.
No, I think Harbaugh was pretty much almost entirely at fault. And do you want to know the biggest reason I say that?
Go ahead.
Like, you're at the end of the game. There's a minute 15 left. Oh, come on. What is it with these coaches and letting 40 seconds run off the clock when you're trying to tie the game or make it last?
Yeah.
Nick, I swear, they never learn.
I know. I never understand that my favorite is when they do a running play
for Robert Saleh, essentially.
Right. But my favorite is it's third down or it's fourth down. It's like fourth down and 2. They decide to throw the football or run the ball and someone's down on the ground. Get the freak off the ground. That's where the 40 seconds is going. Like, what are you doing?
Or why not just use one of your timeouts?
I mean,
that's what they're there for.
40 seconds is, if you play efficiently, is 3 plays.
I mean, let me put it this way. If you're going to go to an arcade, but yet you don't want to use up your coins, even though there's only little time left, then what's the point of having your arcade coins?
I mean, you spent the money. It's not like you're getting it back. I don't know. This was a weird game. I mean, I said it right off the bat that they were the Ravens were already a massive mismatch with Tyler Huntley instead of Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar was never going to play. He was too hurt. But Huntley was a mismatch against Burrow in every way, shape, or form. Now, Burrow only threw for 209 yards, which was kind of a shock to me. Like, talk about someone who's really a slinger. I I mean, Huntley outthrew him in yards, but I think the Bengals were just more efficient offensively. They talk about a team that has weapons offensively.
Yeah, the Bengals definitely, credit to them where credit is due, but I think that was one of those games where they could have easily been upset.
Did you see the comments by Dobbins after the game?
No, what did he say?
He took shots at Huntley for not giving him the ball down the stretch.
I'm sorry. What?
He did, yeah, after the game.
Why?
I
I
mean,
mean, look, I'm not saying he's necessarily wrong, but
13 carries for 62 yards. That's not great.
No, not good.
But I don't know. He was taking shots at him apparently for not getting the ball. By the way, don't you think that's petty when someone takes a shot at a quarterback because they're saying they're not getting the ball enough?
Yeah, like it's happened a lot of times, and it never ends well.
No, it never ends well. And then sometimes you end up benched. Who was it on the Jets? The one that was demanding I can't remember who it was.
Elijah Moore?
It was Elijah Moore who essentially got benched because he's like, I'm not playing because I don't get the football. Well, yeah, look what happened to you.
Idiot.
All right, let's move on to the final game. Probably the one that everyone thought was going to be the most entertaining. The Cowboys flattened the Bucs.
I would say that the Buccaneers on that pirate ship got boat raced. Again, to quote my buddy Noah Dibler.
I mean, has your opinion changed on Tom Brady now?
No, I still think he's washed and should have retired, rather than put his marriage at risk only for a boat racing against the Cowboys.
Oh no, I'm saying you were saying like it's Tom Brady, like you can't really go against it. I meant, have you given up on that opinion?
Maybe.
I mean,
I can still. It's funny. I wanted to pick Dallas, but yet I kept hearing Fonz in my head say, "Don't do it, don't do it. I care about you." Well, actually, not just Fonz, but Tom Scavetta too, because you want to talk about guys who are big. Well, actually, I don't really think Fonz is much of a Tom Brady fan. The guy's a Ravens fan, but Tom particularly respects Tom Brady. Although, to be fair, he like me is a Giants fan, so you can understand why he wouldn't have as much hate for Tom Brady. After all, we beat him twice and we caused his biggest blemish.
Ouch, a Ravens fan. Oi.
No, well, also the Ravens have had some success against Tom Brady too, but I still don't think the Ravens are a legit rival to the Patriots, so I don't really think Fonz supports him.
No, that makes total sense. But a recipe for disaster for Tom Brady, throwing 66 times.
Yeah, you can't do that. He can't do that at his age.
Well, just in general, I think and by the way, everyone was saying this and I agree with it. He looked gun shy in the pocket. Like he was afraid of getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could just tell he was doing everything in his power to avoid getting hit. And I think it was affecting him during the game. I mean, and then the running game was just a no-go. Fournette, 5 carries, 11 yards. Rachaad White, 7 for 41. That basically was a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at Dallas. The same thing I said for the Giants. You could tick all the boxes. Dak Prescott, did he play a good game? Yes. 25 for 33, 305 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, I still think Tampa is low competition compared to what's left in the playoffs. I'll be curious to see what the Cowboys do against the Niners, because that's a totally different defense than Tampa. But Tony Pollard looks amazing, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. No,
in my opinion, he needs to be the one.
Yeah, I don't think you can keep relying on Zeke. You can't keep feeding Zeke anymore.
I feel like Zeke had his 2 years of success, and then he got hurt, and then he held out, and that was the end of his success. Tony Pollard is a much different guy. He's willing to, as they say, run people over as a running back. I mean, you look at the wide receivers. Not much. I mean, they got numbers. Dalton Schultz looked good. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the defense held up pretty good. And then you just see Tom Brady come in after the game, which was kind of hilarious also. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'll decide on my career. I'm going to take some time. We all know if he comes back, he's not going to Tampa. Right?
Well, I mean, it's funny. People thought that, we thought that maybe getting rid of Bruce Arians was going to help him because apparently they had conflicts with each other. Now I'm not so sure. Well, actually, not that I was ever really sure of it to begin with, but are we sure that that was a good thing? I mean, you brought back Todd Bowles, and that's the thing you got to be careful about with a coach who already had one failed tenure. If he has one failed tenure, chances are he's going to have a short leash. And low key, I wouldn't be shocked if the Bucs decided to get rid of him at some point soon. Although I don't think that's going to happen.
You know what they say about the defensive head coaches? They don't usually work out.
Well, yeah, especially in this day and age where it's such a quarterbacks league. And by the way, you want to talk about throwing people under the bus, Brian? Do you think that was the case with Byron Leftwich?
I mean, the offense struggled.
It did, but remember 2 years ago we were talking about him as a potential head coaching candidate.
And I still couldn't believe that back then. We were talking about him as a head coach. What has he done in the league?
Oh no, I'm not saying that's realistic, but I remember Bruce Arians saying that he really didn't do as much and that he delegated a lot of the play calling to Byron Leftwich during that Super Bowl run.
Right, I remember that. Also, did you see the injury to Russell Gage?
Yeah, that was bad.
And I was like, oh my God, this is happening all over again. Please, please don't be another. I think it was a neck injury, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Can I ask you a potentially loaded question?
Yes.
Would you say that the 2022 Buccaneers will go down as the worst playoff team in NFL history?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's an interesting question, actually.
Recency bias would say yes, although I'm also leaning towards the 1969 Houston Oilers, who got boat raced 56-7 by the Oakland Raiders.
By the way, I just looked it up. Gage was hospitalized with a concussion and a neck injury. So that's a lot.
Talk about a double whammy.
Right. Would I say this is one of the worst playoff teams? That's a loaded question, exactly like you said.
And you could also make a case for some of the teams in 82, but I can't count that season because it was a strike-shortened year.
I wouldn't say they're the worst playoff team I've ever seen. No.
For me, well, in my lifetime, I would say yes, but as far as of all time, I don't know if I'd put them ahead of the 1969 Oilers.
I mean, we've seen blowouts. Now, does it necessarily have to be first round, or could it be it happened in a Super Bowl?
Them just losing, being one and done. You could also probably argue the 1963 Boston Patriots in the AFL. They barely won their division, but then they got clobbered by the Chargers and what I think was their last title.
I would still say I don't know if it's worst team, but I guess worst outcome is still the Chargers-Jaguars game this year, in my opinion. The 27-0, losing 31-30.
Well, yeah, no. Blowing a lead in historic fashion like that's pretty bad. So
that would go down as the worst game of the playoffs, in my opinion.
But I mean, worst playoff team in NFL history.
Oh no.
The 22 Bucks have to be in that conversation.
They have to be in the conversation, but I don't know if they'd be the worst. That could be debated, but
correct.
Right. So, all right. So we made it to the wild card recap. Now let's move on to some news, and then we'll make our way over to the divisional round. So, our favorite quarterback is in the news again.
RELAX.
So, the Packers GM, and I can never pronounce his last name because it's like really hard.
Gutekunst?
Yeah, something like that. Basically said Aaron Rodgers to take time and decision on future. Gee, I'll take that for 500, Alex. I mean, like well, I had to pull the game show reference out since I'm sitting here.
He was on Jeopardy and he was the host briefly.
True, but like, isn't this like master of the obvious? This statement right here.
Yeah. I mean, I would say so. Sorry about the yawn.
No, you're okay. But it's just like, what did you expect the GM to say? Did you expect him to say like, "Oh, we're going to force him to make a decision now"? Like, what do you want him to say?
That I'm coming back. Yeah, he's 39 years old. You don't know that.
I mean, I think he's on track to make like $55 million next year, which is insane. Hey, if I were Aaron Rodgers and I'm going to make 50 plus million at 39 years old, I wouldn't even question it. I'd say, where do I sign up? Oh, wait, I already did. Now, he went on the Pat McAfee show, which he always does, and basically said, well, I'm out to prove I could win MVP again. No one cares if you win the MVP again. No one. You need to go win another Super Bowl to cement your legacy.
I mean, he's one of those rare quarterbacks that pretty much has a good legacy, even with that one Super Bowl, and he's going to go into the Hall of Fame even with just that one Super Bowl, but it does affect the way we look at him, and let's just say his mannerisms haven't exactly helped matters much.
No, and it's just, and by the way, like, so he broke up with that girl, the one who did the witches potions stuff, and now he's dating the Milwaukee Bucks owner's daughter now.
Who, Eden's?
I think so, yeah. So now he's dating her, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, we're learning more about Aaron Rodgers' private life than we are football.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, do you see him coming back?
No.
No.
Actually, if he did, it's probably one more year than he's done.
I mean, do you see him turning 50 plus million away?
Well, that I doubt. But I feel like he's only got like 1 year left.
All right. So
and even then, you could argue that it might be possible that he's already reached the expiration date.
Well, let me ask a different question. Okay, so if you think he's going to come back, is it in a Packer uniform?
Probably not.
Because there are a lot of rumors. Like one destination I heard is Vegas, because he could go back with Adams, maybe, but that would have to be via trade, and I don't know what the Raiders are giving up.
Deal now.
What?
They would be a package deal now.
Right. But I'm just saying, what are the Raiders going to give up?
More severance, maybe. I don't know.
I guess picks. Do the Raiders have any picks? I don't even know. But it'll be an interesting situation. What other team can you put him on right now? The Broncos?
Oh, God. Broncos country. Let's ride.
I mean, they can't. They're stuck with their own headache and Russell Wilson. But, I mean, the Ravens? Could the Ravens? Could that be a choice?
Possibly.
Miami? That would be insane. Him with Hill and why am I forgetting the other receiver in Miami?
Waddle.
Thank you. Hill. Can you imagine him with Hill and Waddle?
Why would you want to try to get him if you're Miami? You already have Tua.
Do you really trust Tua after 3 concussions this past year?
When he's healthy, you can.
Are you surprised that they were very quick to name him the starter next year already?
No, because when he started, he and was healthy, they won a lot of games.
Are you worried about him at all, though?
Health-wise, yes, but playing ability-wise, no.
Oh, no. Forget playing ability. Just his playing ability is there. I'm saying, are you worried in general about, like, if it's safe for him to go out there and play?
Yes, that's a fair worry.
So, I don't know. We'll see. But it's both shows, Empty the Bench and Game On, are probably going to be on top of all the Aaron Rodgers nonsense. I'm sure you'll see more. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the divisional round. So now it's time to make the picks. I checked all the lines and I updated them. We use a site called covers.com that updates the lines to the minute as we're doing them. So we are going to get underway with Jaguars at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite. This game is Saturday at 4:30 p.m. on NBC. Hank, what do you think about this game?
I can see this one being a little bit closer. Actually, you know what? Screw it. I don't know if they're going to win or not, but I'm going to take the Jaguars to cover.
Wow, interesting.
I mean, look, am I 100% confident in this pick? No, but at the very least, I think they'll make things interesting with the Chiefs. So give me Kansas City to win, but Jaguars to cover.
See, it's interesting. Again, the Jaguars were closer competition-wise to the Chargers because of the injury to Mike Williams. That made that game almost essentially even in my book. The Chiefs, obviously it's Patrick Mahomes. Obviously it's Travis Kelce. Obviously their weapons are good offensively. Now, I would question the defense of the Chiefs because we've seen them give up many points before. We've seen them give up. So, I mean, I'm going to go with the pick I made on ETB. I think the Chiefs are just going to put up a lot more points. Now, the Jaguars are no slouch. You've been on them too. So, basically, the way I would look at this is Chiefs cover. I'd say take the money, and I think we're going to head to a certain matchup. All right, let's go on. Your game, Giants at the Eagles. Thoughts on this game? 7.5-point favorite on the Eagles side.
First of all, I think you know where I'm going to go with this. The Giants are going to cover that spread. There's no question in my mind that's going to happen. Do I think they're going to win? Okay, this one I'm truly not sure about. But I think 7.5 is definitely coverable. So, I'm going to take the Giants in that sense.
That's interesting. Okay.
I'm just not 100% sure if they're going to win.
I think
because ultimately the Eagles are very strong and talented, but they're also not quite like as dominant as they were like at the beginning.
I think the Eagles are going to win. That's been in my head the whole time. I think as long as Jalen Hurts is healthy, that's the key word, they are going to win. They have better offensive weapons. You're going to see the Eagles stack the box. I don't know what Minnesota was doing as the Giants. They were not stacking the box whatsoever, and Saquon was running all over them. The Giants are a much different. I mean, the Eagles are a much different defense, and they are going to force Daniel Jones to throw the ball downfield way more than the Vikings were. So I'm going to take the Eagles to cover, but I think it's going to be like a very close cover, I think. So that's where I stand with that. Now, next game. This is the emotional rematch game. Bengals at the Bills. Bills are a 5-point favorite. A lot of emotion going into this game. Where do you see this?
Bengals at the Bills. Wow, interesting game. This one I'm taking the Bills to win outright.
I think they're going to be a lot more motivated this time around.
I think they saw how much of a scare that last game is. They're going to come out firing. And personally, I just didn't think the Bengals looked as good in their win.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, even throwing 352 yards, only winning by 3, that kind of scared me just because I think the defense was a little nervous in this game. They're going to have to be a lot more on their game. If they're going to play like they did against Miami, I'm going to steal your term. They're going to get boat raced if they're not careful. So the Bills will cover. It'll be unfortunate because everyone wanted to see Burrow possibly make a Super Bowl run, but I think that run ends. And I think I know where we're heading here. But yeah, I'm going to take the Bills to cover. Final game of the divisional round. A lot of people say this might be the most interesting game of the divisional round. Cowboys at the Niners. Niners are a 3.5 point favorite. Where do you see this?
Give me the Niners.
Any particular reason?
That spread is way too small. The Cowboys fans are gonna get all high and mighty because they beat arguably the worst team in playoff history. But reality is going to soon hit him when they play against the 49ers. The 49ers are absolutely loaded. They're going to California, and not to mention they aren't going to have as many days off as San Francisco. Give me the 49ers.
Yeah, I think this is pretty easy. Like you said,
this is going to be a boat race.
I think this is going to be a boat race too. I just think the offense is better for the Niners. I think the defense is better for the Niners. Everyone thinks like Dak's going to come out and beat Purdy. Purdy has not been a slouch. He's actually played well. People need to give him credit. And I think next year he's going to get the chance to start over either Garoppolo or Trey Lance. I think Garoppolo will be traded before next season. So I think this is going to be Purdy's team. Take the money, and I think this is going to go Bills Niners. So we'll see where that goes. All right, Hank, one last story. I saved it for the end because baseball is finally making its way around, and I think we're going to have a bone to pick with baseball right now. So all MLB Triple-A parks expected to use automated ball strike system in 2023. All right, let me have it. What do you got?
Do we really think that is a scenario that is actually going to help baseball?
Hell Seriously. No. Hell no, Seriously. It's not.
A robot umpire? I mean, on the surface, it sounds like a genius idea and very innovative. Here's the problem. How is a robot going to differentiate a ball and a strike?
I mean, I think I said it to you in the chat when we were talking the other night that a ball landed on the plate. Remember when they first tested it and then the system called it a strike? I mean, I don't know. Here's the deal. They could use robotic umpires. Someone is going to have to stand behind the plate because who's going to make the calls at the plate? When a runner, you have to have someone that's making the calls. What do you do?
Well, forget that. Here's the real issue. It takes away the human element of the umpire.
Duh. Thank you. That's what people are missing. You can't argue with an umpire anymore. You can't do any of this.
You're not going to have any more of the Billy Martin, like tossing the hat, getting into the face like this.
Kicking dirt at umpires. I mean, like, that's the whole fun when the crowd gets all antsy when a player comes running out of the dugout and yelling at an umpire. I don't know. I mean, it's almost the way I compare it is like the challenge system in tennis, where basically they took away the line judges in tennis, and now the challenge software makes every single call on the tennis court now. You know how boring that is? It's human element is gone. It's weird because now you have the automatic system saying out. Like if it's out, it's like okay, whatever. They test everything in AAA first. So if it works in AAA, guess where it's going next? Major League Baseball. I could just see it now. I could see like a Joe Girardi or some. He's not managing right now, but pick whatever manager you want and just and they're gonna scream at somebody and they're gonna scream at a robot. This call stinks. Oh wait, I can't argue with a robot. Robot has no emotions. I don't know. Where do you see this disaster heading?
You're going to hear more people like flipping out about it over the course of time.
How many mistakes do you think you're going to see percentage-wise?
You're going to hear a million mistakes, and people are going to, and all of a sudden, people are going to be begging Rob Manfred to bring human umpires back.
I mean, we saw a bunch of umpires retire during the pandemic because, again, they don't want to deal with the shit of Rob Manfred anymore. But robotic umpires, I don't think that's the answer. And can you imagine if a malfunction happened with a robotic umpire as a big play was happening? What do you do then?
Delayed game due to malfunctioning robot umpire?
No, but I'm saying, say it's a big play, like man on second. Say the Yankees are playing the Red Sox. It's the bottom of the ninth. The Yankees are down a run. And DJ LeMahieu gets a hit, single up the middle. And as he's crossing home plate, and the throw is bang, bang on home plate, and you get a malfunction behind home plate. Think about that. You don't want to think about that. It's a bad feeling. Oh, I'm sure you and I and Johnny and Tom and we're all going to be talking about all the horrible rules that come up in the world of Major League Baseball. Good old Rob Manfred is back, everybody, and it's only January.
Woo!
So, I don't know. It's going to be a long one, and I'm sure Hank's going to write a bunch about Rob. It's going to be an interesting time. Just wait. When does and actually, it's going to be a longer spring training this year. Don't forget that. It's a World Baseball Classic year. I'm sure you're looking forward to that, huh?
I guess so. Can I still enjoy hockey while I've got it with the Rangers?
Yes, you can enjoy hockey. It's at least it's more entertaining than baseball at this point.
I mean, I want to see them go as far as possible. Well, you know what I'd really love to see, even though like that could be a pipe dream, based on the history of the Rangers. Like we'll see.
Yeah, I hope so. But that'll do it for episode 39 of Game On. Make sure you follow the show on social media at Game On ETB. If my mouse will not malfunction, then we can do it. There we go. Follow the show on social media. Follow everybody. Follow Johnny. Follow Hank. Follow myself. It's all scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Yeah, I think that just about does it. Hank, anything else to say before we go?
No, this was always a pleasure. Nick, always good talking to you. And hopefully we'll be back with Johnny soon, but we understand real life is in the way. He was busy. It happens.
Well, actually, let me make the announcement now because technically we're doing a twist for next week's show. Oh,
that's right.
So technically, and I said this on ETB, I'll say it here before we go. Hank will be doing Game On. Hey, look, you get your first opportunity to do a show with Tom Albano. So you are going to be doing Game On with Tom Albano, and Johnny's going to be joining me on ETB. It's almost like an April Fool's prank gone wrong early in the year.
Well, I mean, hey, they did that on April 1st, 1997. Look at Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, my God. I do remember that. You're right.
Pat hosted an episode of Jeopardy, and Alex hosted Wheel, and he had Pat and Vanna as contestants.
Oh, my God. So, yes, we are twisting both shows. So, technically, Johnny will be with me. You will be with Tom. And you'll get, I guess you could say you get half and half of each show on each of the other show. Mm-hmm. So, that'll do it. For Hank Indictor, I'm Nick Morgasen. This has been episode 39. We will see you all next week for episode 40. See you next week.